not going to respond to the Bush attack campaign, which turned out to be a terrible mistake. It wasn't Susan's decision, it was mine.
And let's follow that analysis. The one thing I've noticed about you, watching you on The Advocates, I've gone to many, many of your lectures. You're a very analytical person. You're perceptive, super intelligent, in my opinion. How did you come to the conclusion you should not react to Bush's attacks?
Well, I'm a positive guy.
Right.
You know, I much prefer campaigning positively. That doesn't mean that I don't believe that you shouldn't debate the issues. I mean, you know, Bush and I had major differences, and you talk about them.
Absolutely.
But I'm not by nature a cutter and a slasher.
Right.
And yet I should have known, because in the '82 campaign, King came at me, you know, with all guns blazing.
Very hard.
Attack ads, and he was on television from February on. And so we had to deal with that and dealt with it pretty effectively. But I think, I mean, for one thing, I had won the nomination, which itself was improbable. I mean, when I started running for the nomination, I was at 0 in the polls.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who I was. So I won it with a very positive campaign, and it just seemed to me that people were tired of the polarization, and I'm just kind of naturally a positive guy. But, and in fact, and he by no means ought to bear any responsibility for this, but I remember Mario Cuomo saying to me, "Hey, forget about the attacks, just ignore them." You know?
Okay.
And 4 days before the election, we were campaigning together in Queens. He said it was the worst advice I ever gave. But, you know, maybe, I think it's maybe because he's a positive guy. And and for a much more positive approach to stuff. But, I mean, certainly was a huge mistake.
Yes. Yes, okay. Let's see, here's something that was not a mistake. How do you select Senator Lloyd Bentsen as your vice president?
Thoughtfully, carefully. You ask somebody whose judgment and respect to head up the search, and that was Paul Brown, my campaign chairman, for whom I had great respect, another outstanding member of the class of 1960 at Harvard Law School.
Okay.
And Brownus really is responsible for that selection process, which has now been used, at least on the Democratic side, by everybody I know since. And it involved reaching out to as many people as possible, gradually narrowing the field.
Right.
Coming down to what was kind of a final four, organizing volunteer teams of lawyers and accountants for each of those final four folks, all of whom had agreed that they would offer themselves up, if you will.
Right.
With a very intensive, we certainly didn't want to go through what George McGovern had to go through with Senator Eagleton and that whole situation.
Right.
And so we did, and if you do it and do it right, you end up with the right person, and the right person for me was Lloyd Bentsen.